Well, hello and welcome back to the Purchasing Made Personal podcast. I'm your host, Michael Tucker, and today we're continuing on an episode or two that happened previously with Aaron Raz. And we have a new point of view with all of this AI in the public space, right? I'll say this: if you didn't watch last week's episode, you might want to go grab onto that because that was Aaron Raz out of Colorado, and he's with the municipality there. And he's using AI to totally revamp all of his processes and everything like that. And today we've actually got Nick James with us, who is with the tips vendor. I'll let him introduce himself. But he's from the vendor side. So vendors servicing the public space with their solutions. So Nick, I'm glad to have you on. I'll let you introduce yourself however you see fit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. My name's Nick James. I'm the CEO of White Glove AI. We are traditionally known as a managed AI service provider. So you may be familiar with what a managed service provider or a managed security service provider is. We are a managed
Right.
AI service provider. So our goal and honestly, our mission is to help our clients securely and responsibly adopt artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. And I say that because there's also a robotics component to the work that we do. And so, the sort of the tailwinds we saw in the market when we were initially sort of throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, we found that a lot of organizations were really bending to the will of vendors, and it's kind of been that way for a long time because
Sure.
it's not that you buy a product with your process in mind. It's usually the product will shape your process, right? And it shouldn't be that way.
Right. Yeah.
And so we really wanted to build a service offering. And like I said earlier, the big four buckets of things that we do is we teach, we plan, build, and do. Okay.
Yeah.
And I could break that down later on what exactly that means. But we have a variety of services, a lot of services that cover the entire AI adoption life cycle. So, and then, very, very recently got into physical AI, which is, robotics. But we can talk more about that later. That's us in a nutshell.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Again, glad to have you on. Definitely want to talk about some things on how the public agencies might be adopting AI and all kinds of things. And really, we can go maybe just start on entry level. I think AI as a topic is kind of overwhelming. And
It is.
especially once you get into the public space, it's like, what do I even do with this? Right? So okay, so when you think AI, and when with what White Glove is doing, okay, what is the best way to kinda narrow in the picture a little bit when it comes to the public sector? I know you talked about what you're doing and things like that, but, what are how can we narrow the conversation in to talk about how to apply AI in the public sector?
You have to listen to your constituents. At the end of the day, everything
Okay,
works backwards from your constituents. Whether you call
okay.
them residents or citizens or the city of Anna calls them neighbors. I think that's a pretty cool
Right.
term for your
Yeah.
constituents. But at the end of the day, you need strong data that supports the investment in an operation that includes technology to help address those constituent concerns, complaints. So really looking at the end of the day, city or an agency's job is to serve its constituents, right? That's the customer base, right? It's not
Right.
a commercial operation, but it very much is run like a commercial operation,
Oh, yeah.
constituent customers, right? And so if you start to think of constituents as customers and start applying the lens of customer service and improving customer service, you open up your mind to looking at these problems from a commercial standpoint, where literally your ability to address those concerns is what your company dies or lives on, right? If your
Yeah.
company is not listening to its customers, then its customers will find other options. In this
Right.
case, your constituents will find another city, a neighboring city, perhaps, right?
Mhm.
It's not as easy to move as it is to change jobs, but I think it's important for leadership like city managers, assistant city managers to really apply that customer service lens.
I think you're right on. So, we'll just kinda just create a client avatar for today, right? Let's say, you know, let's say I
Mhm,
come to you
mhm,
and I'm a city, maybe I went to a conference, maybe I learned about some of the things, it's like, "Okay, now I need someone to help me integrate this," and, "Okay, now I found Nick," right? So when they say and this is generally how I'm seeing it, if you're seeing another major problem that's first addressed, I'd love to hear it, but it's generally, "Okay, Nick, we're understaffed at our
mhm,
city or school or whatever. And I've heard about these things called AI agents and how they can help with efficiency and all these types of things. I've seen how they can maybe integrate to my phone or my email or anything else. Where do we start? Right? Where do you
mhm.
take that person and what, I know you said listen to the constituents, but what are the kind of the big key things that you'd recommend to start at?
The most basic metric you can use to measure on where you should start with AI is where the cost of a mistake is the lowest. That's
Yeah.
so because you're introducing risks and variables that are unknown. Uh, we can make them known as much as we can, but until this thing is live in production, I'll give you an example. Like City of Frisco, we launched an AI avatar. You said avatar. I'm using it in a different definition.
No, I totally get it.
Oh, you get it,
Yeah,
right. So it's
lots of different
actually a
definitions.
an AI replica of an employee that works for the city. It's one of the employees for the Economic Development Corporation in Frisco. And so
Yeah.
the goal was the parks, they call it Play Frisco. They wanted to have the ability to service visitors, right, without actually hiring someone to stand there from park open or park close, right? Which parks just they don't do, right? Maybe perhaps larger parks do it, but regular parks like Frisco Commons Park just does not do. So they wanted to use artificial intelligence in a way to service constituents in a place where they're not being served in a very I would say it's a good sized park where there's a lot of options and what a visitor will do and how their experience can be tailored really comes down to who they are and who they're with, right? And what they're
Mhm.
feeling like, what they want to do. So we deployed an AI avatar, but it we had originally charted it out to be about an 8-week program. It took a lot longer, and I would say rightfully so, because the city of Frisco has very high standards in
Sure.
comparison to other cities their size and even larger cities. I have a deep appreciation for the level of scrutiny they applied. But, once this thing goes out into production, you have to think of generative AI as an opportunistic personality, right? Meaning
Yeah.
there's no deterministic behavior with generative AI. You cannot you can if you work with the right people and you work with the right systems, you can create a workflow that creates a determined output or deterministic workflow. But a large part, these voice systems, these avatars, they're very opportunistic. So,
Yeah.
the testing just got stretched out a lot because we were trying to ask questions that we didn't even think were questions that people would ask, but what if they did ask, how would it
Right.
react? I think they followed the principle of starting where the cost of a mistake is low. If the avatar says, the wrong name for one of the monuments there, no big deal. They'll laugh it off, right? It's
Right.
so they started on that principle and then they applied scrutiny to the outputs of the AI. So I would say that that's a really good example of how cities can start where a cost of a mistake is low.
That's really, really good insight there. So when you get in a little more maybe, okay, so you said Frisco or something like that, and it's like, okay, now we're seeing this AI is working, right? Or like you get through that beta phase of applying it and seeing and asking it 1,001 questions and more, right? What are some other tasks that AI is being used in a meaningful way?
I think what hasn't been unlocked yet, and due in part, and I'm okay to publicly say this, due in part to oversized budgets of large companies like Microsoft. What
Mhm.
hasn't been unlocked yet is the true partnership between AI and a fully AI enabled employee, right? Um,
Right.
and the easy button right now is Copilot, and I think that that's probably one of the biggest mistakes any municipality will do is to hit the easy button, just because it's a part of their E5 license. At the end of the day, you're going to do more harm and damage than you will do good. Releasing Copilot out into the masses, right?
Yeah.
With no formal training, with no set expectations on usage, and with no clear way of measuring what return on investment looks like, right? Because that's
Yeah.
$35 per license, 30 to
Right.
$35 per license, right? So I think the biggest unlock here, when you said earlier, we're all overworked, right? Immediate prescription there, and we're biased. Obviously, we just got accepted into the Claude Partner
Yeah.
Program,
Totally get that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and we're fully Claude pilled. It's kind of like the the blue and red pills in the Matrix. We're orange
Yes.
pilled. We're fully into Claude, and we truly believe that the future of productivity for agencies lies in the coffers of Claude, right? Claude
Okay.
has built the program that sits on top of the models so well, and that it is easy to deploy. It's enterprise grade, has enterprise grade security. It meets
Yep.
all of the most of the requirements, right? If you're getting into CGIS data and stuff like that, obviously there
Yes.
are caveats for that, but we truly think that the biggest unlock that has yet to be experienced, some cities are using it, and I give them a lot of credit, is Claude for government.
Wow. So what are like you hit the nail on the head, right? Is and you weren't there, Nick, but the audience has seen. So Aaron last week, yeah, they did the co-pilot, right? However,
Mhm,
that came with Aaron personally training for what I believe was 24 months.
mhm.
Right? And so what does that training look like? How should someone start? Is there a certification? Like you just said, your company is partnering with Claude and things like that. What should the public agency employee or even the CFO who's going to be buying it, right? What should they be looking at doing as far as a rollout then? If that's going to be a major point of entry, is the training to do it right?
Number 1, talk to someone who's already done it.
Yeah,
Number 2, plan. Plan and plan very well. Number 3, have systems in place to measure. You cannot manage what you don't measure, right?
right.
And number 4 is start with training, right? How that training is delivered, there's a variety of options, whether in person or
Right.
self-paced online. I'm, we provide training, obviously, but there are many other sources. Heck, you can just go straight to Anthropic, and they provide free training. If you
Yeah.
think that's enough, go for it. We're not going to stop you from doing it, and it's not a secret, right? It shouldn't be a secret. But if you need more hand holding, then come to a company like us, and we can show you how to do it specific to your agency, and not just a generic training video that's made for everybody, right? That's
Yeah.
really, and that really sort of shows the meaning behind the name of the company, White Glove AI.
Yeah. Right. And that's what you're doing. And so let's just keep moving down this little thought pattern for our little, integrated client person, right? So okay, now it's fully integrated. And maybe it's just one position, right? Maybe it's got multiple AI pieces throughout that all talk to each other and you and I both know they can get as can get as dynamic as we about want it to be right now,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
So now I guess the last question is, and I think it helps in preparing, because I'm using AI, I'm using Chat, and I'm using Claude for the most part, and I have the paid prescription, right? Because I'm managing, kind of a larger territory for what I'm doing, right? So I'm using those types of tools, and I have the paid prescription, and so uh, for someone who's just now starting to look into integration, right? I think it's important to realize what AI isn't going to do, right? It's going to do a lot. Don't get me wrong, and don't think that I'm deceived that a lot of people say, well, AI doesn't do that. And I'm like, I've seen four AIs that can do that. And so I
Yeah.
know an AI can do a lot, but planning as think on what is still going to be the human input to a job or a project and things like that. What is the human touch that still has to stay present? And I think intentionally so for some of it, right? What's that human aspect that isn't gonna go away?
I do wanna be I'm glad you asked that question because I think I don't wanna glance over, like, this big blaring topic that needs to be talked about, which is governance.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so I think we kinda went right into, like, "Hey, what's the biggest pain point? What's the solution?" Right? But how do you govern it? So I would
Uh-huh.
say in because I said we teach, plan, build, do. In planning, a big part of that is building both your AI governance program and your strategy. Building the program and the strategy, right? It will involve AI to do the work, right?
Right.
But it doesn't need to involve vendors, right? I think I think organizations have become so accustomed, and I would probably say a stronger word like indoctrinated into seeking technology to solve problems because they don't believe that they can on their own. And that
Right.
used to be true, but it no longer is true, right? So it's really important to start with planning and understand that a big part of this has to do with change management and culture, right? There's a
Mhm.
huge mental like shift that needs to happen in people's minds. And there is almost like you have the seven stages of denial, right? Or denial or grief. I
For
can't remember.
grief, for all of
Grief.
it, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Grief, yeah.
Yeah. In that same way, we have our own thesis on the stages of AI adoption in the human psyche, and so
Wow.
I think that a lot of that planning is very important, and that governance program, right? When you're talking about permissions, right? You don't want an AI model that's connected to all of your data serving sensitive HR information to someone in operations or right? So over permissioning, right? Loose permissioning is a big problem. We've developed our own AI adoption and management framework, and we've open sourced it, meaning that it's free for people to use. Um,
Wow.
we'll be releasing version 2 probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks in draft on our website. So just keep on the lookout at whitegloveai.com.
That's great. We
But
love free
effectively,
resources.
yeah, it's a free resource, right? And that's our contribution to the industry. And so we want to make it as easy as possible. If you think you can do it on your own, go for it. We're not going to charge you anything for it. It's available for absolutely free. And it's something we've worked on. The first version we worked on for almost 8 months. The second version we worked on for about 4 months. Things are just moving so fast, and our ability to produce is also getting faster. So we need to keep up with the pace of change, but we use the pace of change to keep up, if that makes sense.
It does
It's
make
like,
sense.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's a self-feeding kind of loop. But anyway, going back to AI governance, that's really, really key and important, and helping everybody understand their place and role in this new world. And that is really going to address the dangers and harms that I was talking about earlier when you just buy a license and you just throw it out there and say, hey guys, start using it, right? I think that there's a lot more harm that you're going to do being that hasty with low levels of planning and preparation. You're going to
Yeah.
cause a lot of damage. So I, I think I went a little bit off track from
Well,
where
you
we.
really didn't, because that's literally my next was gonna be my next kind of question was, I think there is, you know, the public agencies out there, right? Schools, municipalities, right? Even nonprofits who might be thinking about this and that we're have an audience with, right? Um, I think the reluctancy is that they are privy to a lot of private type information, right? Now, a lot of this stuff is public, so there's lesser risk there, but there is some things like you mentioned, HR or in our hospitality things. There's HIPAA violations that are in play. There are definite risks and data and policies that don't need to be distributed. So when evaluating an I guess, on what to implement, what should they be using or how should they think in regards to selecting what AI they might make available to their public agency?
Due diligence is always a product of a well written and mutually agreed upon policy, right? So everything's the seed of everything starts with policy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Policy runs an organization. It is to govern an organization, right? And so I think due diligence needs to change completely. And I think that there
Okay.
are all walk run steps in this space. There are a lot of questions that are not being asked. There are also a lot of regulations that are coming into play. In Texas specifically, the Texas Responsible AI Governance Act came
Yes.
out last year, was effective Jan 1 of this year. And cities like Frisco, they asked us first about it.
Yeah.
But that it's just not a common question we get, honestly. So tracking what your obligations are by regulation, like what are you encumbered
Yep.
against or encumbered by, right?
Mhm.
Regulations. And then what are your commitments above and beyond your obligations, right? And that will
Absolutely.
really define your policy. And then your policy will define due diligence. So understanding deployment types, understanding where data is going. So I'm getting a little bit more prescriptive here,
No, I
sharpening
understand.
sharpening my pencil a little bit, but where is your data going? So AI is just kind of like, black box for most people, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't contain data structures the way you and I think of a database does, right? Everything runs on neural networks and everything is probabilistic. And if you actually look at how
Yeah.
a character is decided to be used in a completion, your mind would blow up, right? Because it's all math. It's just math. So
Yes.
reconstruction of data that was put into a model that's used by the entire world. When you talk about risk, risk is likelihood times impact, right? We have to think about like the likelihood of that. So I think a lot of
Mhm.
fear stems from older understandings of data structures in databases, right? And people fear the retrieval of that data. And then immediately security team is freaking out and nobody's getting aligned. So
Right.
I think getting key stakeholders who need to make these decisions well educated is number one. Then writing the policy, socializing the policy, simplifying it to a point where you can explain it to any key stakeholder, agreeing upon that, establishing it, and enforcing it. And that's where due diligence will come from. But I can probably go on and on for days on this. But yeah,
No, and that's all very, very important, and I think it all comes down to this is something that's never been available before, right? Okay, like, it's come around in the past decade, it's getting more and more and more, but for the most part, especially regarding public agencies and their policies and what they're, you know, created to do, which is, protect the public and help the public, right?
right.
It's never been available to the government or school district or something like that before, right?
No,
And it's powerful And hate to use the old Spider-Man adage, right? But great power, great responsibility.
That's right.
And so I think before anyone pulls the trigger, everyone's very excited and everyone's ready to do it. But that education piece, like you said, that four parts of what you're doing, that education almost becomes the most important in the start of things,
It
right?
is. It is.
So yeah, I agree entirely. So now I got a couple things here, things like you know, we can go any direction that you might want, Nick.
If I
But
may go on a thread real quick, um,
yeah,
you say with great power comes great responsibility. This truly is, I forget who said it, but the quote goes, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this is magical,
yeah, oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
wow, I love that.
Yeah. I might have been Immanuel Kant. I can't remember. But anyway, great
Sure.
quote, and very relevant to what we're undergoing right now. Um, I think that remember when Superman got his powers and he was just clumsy, right?
Yeah,
He couldn't pick up, a car, or it'd be unstable like when he first discovered his powers. That's kind of where we
yeah,
are right now, right?
right,
And so to get to a mature state where you're able to harness these powers and use them for good is really, really important. And that comes through education, and it comes most importantly through application. Right?
right.
So a lot of CIOs are sitting on the sidelines because they're afraid of making the wrong decision and getting fired.
Hmm.
I would be bold and say that you're a derelict of your duties if you're ignoring this.
Wow, wow, and it surely is taking over. I mean, it is right, and for me, like I said, I'm using it for my day in, day out, and I'm obviously, I lean more towards caution because we don't have the order or things in place at my job. So I'm using it personally and things like that. So I'm never putting confidential information in, but eventually that's where it's all going, right? To where I'll say it's like agency provided, y- you know, um, systems, right? Whether it be Claude or whatever you're using, right? It's going
Mhm.
to be an agency provided thing, an employer provided network of things, right?
Should be.
So if you're a leader, Nick, and if you're saying, okay, I'm derelict of my duties if I don't start thinking about this, how do I start that integration? How do I just say, hey, this is what we're doing. I want you guys to play with it because there's always a testing phase, right? There's always that,
Has
like you
to be.
said, with the monument, low risk and things like that. So, but is it something that eventually it's going to get incorporated to the higher risk if there's a mistake type of thing? How do we encourage the team to experiment with AI while trying to keep those guardrails in place, and things like that?
The Texas Responsible AI Governance Act also calls for a sandbox. Uh, this is particularly for vendors to test, high risk systems. But I think
Yeah,
the same concept can be applied at work,
I
right?
think that's exactly right.
Talk to any CIO, IT folk in the city. Ask them what a sandbox is. They're not going to tell you it's at a playground with sand, full of sand.
Right.
They're going to describe an IT system that's confined, and it's segmented or segregated from the rest of the environment. Right?
Yep.
Start there. Start small. Just don't. I don't want to sound like overbearing, but you're 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 doing more harm than good by ignoring something this blaring, right?
Right.
And I know you're not in competition like a commercial entity like my company would be in,
Right.
but at the end of the day, like your neighboring cities are doing it, right? But so start with sandbox, start small. Um,
Yeah.
Start where cost of a mistake is low. Start with a small process that's just absolutely annoying. uh, there are power users in your environment. Here's what's really cool about this technological revolution that we're going through. Um, this is the first time where an emerging technology has touched the personal lives of your employees before it's touched the personal environment or the professional environment.
Right.
Normally, emerging technologies like the internet, the mobile phone, Google search, et cetera. Google search might have been an exception to this, but normally you experience emerging technology at work because your work can afford it. You personally cannot.
Right.
But the democratization of AI and the ease of access to it allowed people to touch it in their personal lives first, and that only led them to imagine or become curious about how it can help them at work, right? And
Right.
so you have this outside in, bottom up pressure to adopt, and now you got council sitting at the top, placing top down pressure, right? There's a lot city managers, IT staff are feeling a lot of pressure, but just know there's some relief in champions and power users that exist in your environment. You just got to find them. Okay.
Yeah.
And they may be secretively power users out of fear that may have been established by leadership in the culture. Right. And so
Wow.
having an environment where they feel safe to talk about, how amazing, like just running a hackathon or rewarding them with Starbucks gift cards, like call people out, into an environment that's safe and rewards people for showing you how amazing, like their powers are a lot better than yours, right?
Yeah.
They had the opportunity, you all had the opportunity to discover it at the same time, but some chose to really hone their skills in a personal environment. And now they're here at work and they really want to use it, but they're going to get penalized if they do. They're going to get their hand slapped. And that's the wrong type of culture.
Yeah. I think you're right there. So with all the integrations that you're managing from City Park in Frisco, to, when you mentioned to me, I think off the podcast, but, with like customer service and AI integration into, service calls
Oh,
and things like that, and all these different things as far as, um, job management, where, how is this, obviously it's not just reshaping, it's blowing it up into a million pieces and reconstructing it, okay?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
and that's the reality, right? So, what is it turning the public sector into in a positive light, I'd say, where is it going and what is it gonna enable, cities to do if they can get on board and join this wave and develop those skills like we've been talking about?
I take some time to dream about the city I want to live in. I mean, city I want to live in is the city I live in now. I love the city I live in. But you know, actually writing a book about this called The Autonomic City. It's
Wow,
going through publisher review right now. It'll probably be out in a few months.
phenomenal.
But I think of a city as a living organism. You know what's funny about humans? We only have a singular point of reference to build off of, and that's our bodies and nature. So
Right.
everything we build around us resembles our bodies and nature. Look at the roadways. Don't
Yeah,
they resemble our blood system, right? Right, like our circulatory system, excuse me.
sure.
Look at the sensors on the roads, right? They resemble our nervous system. Look at networks. They resemble our circulatory and nervous system, right?
Mhm.
So I think that the future of cities is to be this living, breathing organism that's that is instantly reactive to things that happen that are outside of its control, right? And that's what I mean by the autonomic city. You've heard of the term the autonomic nervous system, right? So I kind of
Right.
went along those lines and played along with those words, but it's really about having a very highly responsive city regardless of what's happening. There's something there, and that's why we're getting so deep into robotics, because I really see that that's the
Sure.
future. Think about our men and women who are out there and putting themselves in harm's way unnecessarily, right? Right now it's necessary, but in the future, I mean, it's here now. When we have, let's say it's an active shooter scenario, we shouldn't
Mhm.
be sending humans into that. we have no understanding of the landscape. We might have a map of the building, but we don't know where the shooter is. Maybe we have camera feeds. I don't know. But if you can send one of our dogs in, and they're going to be using similar dogs that weren't purchased through us for the FIFA, the World Cups. Arlington PD, I believe, bought some. So you'll see
Yeah.
them in action during FIFA. But our dogs can carry a number of things. I mean, they have lethal attachments, non-lethal attachments. They have camera arrays, sensors like gas sensors. They can do thermal, lidar, 360-degree vision. So imagine, a world where we can reduce the risk to humans and increase across the board the quality of life by using technology to reduce risk, to reduce the need for overtaxation, right? Because we're achieving levels of efficiency through artificial intelligence where we
Wow.
can all have a good standard of living, right? I, I, I guess I don't want to spoil too much of the book itself, but that's kind of the
Yeah.
idea behind it and what I see. It's a living, breathing organism. When you put your finger in fire, your muscles immediately remove your finger from the fire, whether you like it or not. When you wake up in the morning, your heart was beating all night and your respiratory system was breathing all night, whether you like it or not, right? That's an
Yeah.
autonomic system.
Right. That's amazing. It reminds me, every technology and technology is not just this AI stuff. I mean, the wheel was a
Sure.
technological
Yeah.
advancement. That is, the definition of technology. But every technology, like you said, is kept because it improves the life of the user, right? And so I think from this context and from the point of view of a school or from the point of view of a first responder district, like you said with the PD, or the point of view of a municipality, you have the opportunity to manage every technology that comes through it, not just AI. I'm talking about quality of life technology advancements. You can manage every single one that comes in and help apply it to the daily lives of your
People.
constituents, right?
Yeah,
Whoever that might be. I think that's at its core, like you've said, government's responsibility.
it is.
And so it's a brave new world. It's oftentimes a scary new world. It's something that we have to approach with, like you said,
Awesome.
training and due diligence and caution.
Yeah.
However, it's a tool that we need to train with, and I think that's a great message to walk away with. Is it's time to start training. It's
It's time to
time to
start.
get down, open, crack the books. Right? You're not cracking a book. You're opening Claude. You're
It's
opening chat.
yeah,
You're opening and
and
start learning.
there is a child in all of us. Some of
Yeah.
us may have forgotten about that child, but that child learned. I mean, when you come into this world, you know nothing. You
Yeah.
have no pre-training, right? You are fresh, and everything we learn is through trying, is through, and it is really fueled by our curiosity, right? So that child still exists in you. So just get curious, play with
Yeah.
things. Don't set restrictions on yourself because you're following some stigma that was set by a movie that was made in the 80s called Terminator, right?
Right.
We get to shape the future, not a movie from Hollywood. We get to
Right.
shape it. If good people with good intentions use it correctly, then it will do good for us.
That's great. I love it. Well, Nick, I want to thank you again for joining. I think the topic today was phenomenal, truly.
Yeah.
Now, I'll let you say goodbye, but also be sure to include where they might be able to get a hold of you and things like that. Right.
Yeah,
So go
sure.
ahead.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, Michael. Where I think I'm most active is on LinkedIn. I'm
Sure.
probably the first Nick James that you're gonna find find on there. I got my black cowboy hat on. You can't miss me. Find me on
Nice.
LinkedIn, engage with me, send me a message. You can always see We are very public. We build in public, so you can go to our website, whitegloveai.com, not whiteglove.ai, but whitegloveai.com. And you can see everything that we're up to. The team is always doing something weird, new, cool. But we always welcome curious people who want to do good with this technology.
That's phenomenal. Well, again, thank you for coming on and sharing some of these vendor insights on this emerging necessity, is what I'll say. I will say this, if you've listened this far, obviously AI is a topic for you, and we would hope that you continue because we talk on a vast number of topics here. And give us a like, give us a 5-star review on a podcast app or wherever you might be listening to. That really does help us out. And if you're looking to join Tips as an agency, that's totally free. There's 15,000 agencies using us now across the country. We love to work with you. We love to be a resource for you. And if you'd like to be a vendor on that, that's simply responding to an RFP, just like Nick did with White Glove AI and his solutions, and to help service these public agencies, right? That's at our website at Become a Vendor. That's all we have for you today. We're looking forward to seeing you again next time, and we'll catch you then.